Good morning, and welcome to another episode of Legislative Matters Now with M&M. I'm Morgan Spicer, Special Projects Coordinator here at the ARC of the Mid-Ohio Valley.
And I'm Melissa Southall, Self-Advocate Coordinator with the ARC and People First. Before we begin today's show, Morgan, can you explain the purpose of this show?
I would love to, Melissa. The purpose of our program is to educate all self-advocates, including Melissa and I, on the ever-important topic of legislative advocacy. Now, we do this each month by having a guest, which may talk about a piece of legislation, or they may be from an agency that was created by legislation. We also, on many programs, depending on the topic and time allowed, do a segment called Advocate in Action, where we talk to a self-advocate who is using their self-advocacy skills in a positive light to not only influence their lives, but the lives of others around them.
Our guests will be joining us in just a few moments. But first, let's get to this month's edition of Who You Gonna Call.
On today's edition of Who You Gonna Call, you want to know more about the services that Disability Rights of West Virginia offers, but do not know who to call. So who are you going to call? Your city council member, your state house of delegates or state senators, your U.S. senator or U.S. Congress members, or the agency or organization that you want to know more about. So what do you think, Morgan? A, B, C, or D?
The answer is D.
How about you, Melissa?
I agree with Morgan. I think the answer is D.
You're both correct. The answer is D. Disability Rights of West Virginia, and ask them directly. Disability Rights of West Virginia is a private nonprofit agency dedicated to protecting and advocating for the legal rights of West Virginians with disabilities. They're designated as West Virginia's Protection and Advocacy System, or P&A. Every state is mandated by the federal government to have a P&A. DRWV works to ensure that West Virginians with disabilities have access to the same opportunities afforded all members of society and can live full, productive lives totally integrated into their communities with as much self-direction and independence as possible. Disability Rights of West Virginia strives to promote systematic change to increase access to services, promote equality, and protect rights.
To explain this further, our guest today is Susan Given. Susan is the Executive Director with Disability Rights of West Virginia. She has been Executive Director with Disability Rights for 7 years and is from Milton, West Virginia. Thanks so much for joining us today, Susan, and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I understand Disability Rights is a federally mandated protection and advocacy system and client assistance program. Can you explain what that is in a more simplified manner?
Sure. Every state and U.S. territory has what is called a protection and advocacy system, or P&As. P&As are mandated by federal law, and the goal is to protect and advocate for the rights of people with disabilities. The passing of the legislation for the first P&A program was in part a result of Geraldo Rivero's expose on an institution called Willowbrook in New York in 1973. The conditions that people with disabilities were living in was horrendous and shocking. That expose shocked the country. So in 1975, first U.S. Congress passed the Developmental Disabilities Assistance Bill of Rights Act, or it's also known as the DD Act. And it provided federal funds to programs serving people with developmental disabilities and outlining a series of rights for those who were institutionalized. In 1977, the Protection and Advocacy for Persons with Developmental Disabilities program was established in West Virginia. It was first called the West Virginia Advocates for the Developmentally Disabled, or WVADD, and it was the organization was designated by then Governor Jay Rockefeller as West Virginia's arm of the federally mandated protection and advocacy system. And of course, at that time, it was only the PAD program. And so they only served individuals with developmental disabilities. So then in 1984, in response for the need for a comprehensive advocacy monitoring program and to represent people with clients of vocational rehabilitation system, Congress established the Client Assistance Program. And the Client Assistance Program serves clients who are receiving services from DRS, Center for Independent Living, supported employment programs, and other programs funded under the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 as amended. So in 1984, Governor J. Rockefeller designated West Virginia advocates to administer the Client Assistance Program. And not all P&A programs have the CAP program, but most do.
Does that mean you are a government agency and you are federally funded?
We are not considered a government agency. We are a private nonprofit that receives federal funds to administer the protection and advocacy programs.
Can you explain the different services you provide?
Sure. We provide many types of services. One of them is systemic advocacy services, and that's activities and projects that are meant to serve a broad population. But in the systems advocacy, that could include serving on task forces or even class action litigation. So that's our systemic advocacy. We have community advocacy services, and those activities are projects that provide outreach and educational presentations to persons with disabilities, professionals, and the community at large. It also includes self-advocacy, training self-advocates, training professionals, needs assessments, publications, and media. Then we do information and referral services, and that is just a brief written or oral information about our program or about a resource that someone might be able to use. INRs are generally short duration, typically ranging from a few minutes to an hour. We also have direct advocacy services. This includes technical assistance, where we would, in addition to providing information and referral, an attorney or advocate can advise a client regarding self-advocacy, including explaining how a delivery system works and assisting with filing grievances and complaints. We also have case services individual advocacy. That's where an attorney or an advocate directly assists the client by obtaining and reviewing information, helping the client decide what actions they want to have taken, and then working with the client to resolve the issue. And we might represent them at meetings or hearings or even litigation. We also do individual investigations. We do an abuse neglect investigations done when DRWV has an allegation that abuse or neglect may have occurred to an individual with a disability, and a DRWV staff attorney has reviewed the allegation and has documented in writing that DRWV has probable cause to believe that the abuse or neglect occurred.
What are the different programs you operate?
We have several different protection and advocacy programs. One is called the Protection and Advocacy for Individuals with Mental Illness, or the PAMI program. And as within the institutions for developmental disabilities back in the 70s, they found that there was significant abuse and neglect in the hospitals to treat for people with mental illness. So a P&A program was developed for individuals who are institutionalized in the state hospitals. At first, when it was first enacted, we could only serve people who were in the institutions or within 45 days of discharge, but that changed later, and we can now serve individuals with mental illness that are in the community. And then we found, or Congress found, that there were individuals with disabilities who did not meet the criteria for either the PAD program or the PAMI program or the CAP program. And this, an example of this might be an individual who uses a wheelchair and didn't have access to a public building or whatever. So they enacted the PAIR program. It's Protection and Advocacy for Individual Rights. So that's kind of a catch-all for people who don't qualify for some of our other programs. And you only have to, for that program, you only have to have one functional limitation. And, each one of these programs have specific guidelines for acceptance. So we have, in order to serve someone with a mental illness, we actually have to have documentation by a medical professional that person does have a mental illness. Then later, they added protection and advocacy for individuals with traumatic brain injury. So we serve individuals who fall in that category. We have the assistive technology program, and that's for individuals who need access to some sort of assistive technology, and there are barriers for them to get that, so we assist with that. Then we have our protection and advocacy for beneficiaries of Social Security, and that's for individuals who receive SSI or SSDI, and they would like to go to work, but they have a barrier in doing so. So we have that program to help people get back in the workforce. In 2000, they added a protection and advocacy for voter access, or our PAVA program. So we have most of our advocacy is around accessibility at polling places and ensure that people with disabilities can exercise their right to vote. As recently as 2018, Congress established the Protection and Advocacy for Beneficiaries with Representative Payees program, and that was under the Strengthening Protections for Social Security Beneficiaries Act of 2018. And again, 2009 expose revealed that there was rampant financial exploitation of people with disabilities on a turkey farm in Iowa. And so the report highlighted a service provider that forced individuals with disabilities to work for sub-minimum wage in poor housing. So on top of the bad working conditions and pay, the provider used the Social Security Representative Payee system to take workers' Social Security benefits. So when that was made public, then the act authorized the Social Security to fund each state's protection and advocacy system to conduct reviews of representative payees under the SSI or SSDI program. And lastly, we have a state contract called the Medley-Hartley Advocacy Program. And this grant provides advocacy to individuals with developmental disabilities in compliance with state and federal court directives.
There are some legal services that people request that you do not accept. Can you please tell us what those are?
Sure. We don't accept cases that would fall under domestic relations, and that includes divorce, annulment, separation, child custody, child support. We don't do wills or estate planning, real estate and property law, Social Security benefits, denials or terminations. We don't do anything that involves criminal matters. I mean, if it's a person with a disability, as you know, people are appointed attorneys if they can't afford one. So if there's something specific about the case and it's a person with a disability, we can provide technical assistance to that attorney, but we would not do that ourselves. We don't do juvenile justice matters, and we don't take any service request that's not directly related to a disability rights issue, even if the client has a disability. And an example I can think of that is a person with a disability calls and says that they're being evicted from their apartment because they didn't pay their rent. That everyone has to pay rent, so that really is not directly related to the person's disability. But if they would call us and say, I just obtained a service animal and the landlord does not allow pets and I'm being evicted, that would be something that would be directly related to the person's disability. So we would probably take that case. We also don't take service requests outside of DRWV's annual priorities and objectives unless exceptions are made in accordance with our goals and mission.
If someone believes you can help them, what is the best way to contact you? And is there any cost for the service you provide?
Anyone that would like to receive our services can call our 800 number, which is 1-800-950-5250. You can also reach us through contact at drofwv.org, but all of our service requests go through our intake department. Our services are free and confidential.
Anything else you would like to add?
One thing I would like to say is that we can't serve everyone that calls us. We just simply do not have the funding to do that. People sometimes get upset when they call for services and we can't help them. And so in order to manage this, I talked about priorities and objectives earlier. We're permitted to establish yearly priorities and objectives to establish case services criteria. When we get a request for services, one of the first things we look at is, does it fall within our current P&Os? If not, we don't accept the request unless it's an extraordinary circumstance. We do, however, provide information and referral to everyone who calls us. So we, try to give them information or refer them to another agency that might be able to help. But we are what's called a minimum allotment state, and we just simply, we serve the whole state, and we have about 30 employees, and we just simply do not have the resources to take every call that we get. And, people get upset about that.
Thank you so much, Susan, for joining us today.
It was my pleasure.
And don't forget, if you have an important piece of legislation you want discussed in a future episode, or you want to be an advocate in action, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. You can call the ARC at 304-422-3151, or you can email us directly. My email is morgan.spicer@thearcmov.org. And Melissa, how can you be reached?
And you can reach me at melissa.southall@peoplefirstwv.org. We'd love to hear from you.
This month, we have an advocate in action. A little different this time. It's my brother, Michael Spicer. He's from Parkersburg and works at the Federal Building through SW Resources. Thanks so much for joining us today, Michael, and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
You work at SW Resources under their federal contract. Would you tell us how you advocated for yourself to get the job?
Well, I started doing that through the DRS. I had moved to Parkersburg and started actually working telemarketing, being on the phone and trying to sell things and hearing bunches of no's and don't call me's and things like that. And, things just didn't work out there. And, I was kind of wondering, where can I go? What can I do? And a friend of mine at the time recommended the Division of Rehabilitation Services. And I had worked with them before through high school. I was a senior offered free, it isn't much of a college, it's more of a technical school where where they learn you life skills and basic things there. And it was free, paid for by the state. So I had knowledge of the DRS, and I met Shannon Dugan, who I was already very familiar with, and, gave her my case. We tried a couple different other places, didn't work out. So she gave me SW Resources, and I started there. And, I started on the production floor, just doing production-based stuff and doing whatever, they usually have you do when you come in during the day. It's normally just various things. And I wanted to do like cleaning. It's odd to say, but I actually enjoy cleaning. It's therapeutic. And I went to my case manager and I was like, how do I do this? And she's like, you want to sign up to do cleaning? So they put me on a training at the Boys and Girls Club, which at SW Resources is literally diagonally from there. You just have to cross the street and walk right down, and it's there. And that was my training spot. And I was there for a while there, and then they did state office building for me. And I did everything that was asked of me. The tasks were good. My work was impressive. I met who my project manager is there now, Jake Ridgway. And he, along with myself, helped advocate for me because he, like Shannon, saw there was something in me that had potential, that could do and could be a force, you know, for the workplace for good. So I got to Mobile Crew after that, and did Mobile Crew there for a while. And I did Mobile, it was Mobile Crew, then Strip and Wax. I did Strip and Wax, like tile floors. And I did, you know, a couple other small contracts here and there. And one day I was asked if I wanted to do Bureau of Fiscal Services. At the time, they didn't have a full-time position available. So they said you would be working 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. It's just, you know, basically whatever they want you to do, you do it. And I showed up every day, never missed a day, worked my butt off. And one day an opportunity arose where I was asked if you would like to, you know, there's a position for full-time, you know, open, you know, is that something you would like to do? And funny as it is, I said, let me think about it. I should have never thought about it, but, you know, it was a shock at the time because I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. So I started from here, and then I've came up advocating for myself this whole time, came up, and now they finally see that I can do better because I have advocated that I'm such a great worker and my work ethic has really shown. The next day, I the first thing I ran was to the boss, and I said, yes, this job, I want to do it. And that's how I started. That's how I started at Bureau of Fiscal Services. There were some hard times. I mean, when is there never? But, you know, we turn coal into diamonds. So by pressure. So you just got to apply pressure.
Could you tell us what exactly your job entails?
My job starts at 11:30/noon. And my job basically is a day shift. I work 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. Sometimes I'm asked to go in early in case a worker calls off or there's a life emergency or some sort, but I usually have some sort of advance notice for that. Sometimes they call you last minute, which sucks, but you adjust. I'm normally just there to help day shift. We have a day shift that normally is during the day, gathers trash, just does very small tasks because we can't run vacuum cleaners, mops, anything very loud that's going to cause noise and interfere with the workers' phone calls or meetings that they might have. Normally, I go from building to building sometimes, check and see if they need help getting their jobs done. Night shift begins their job at 2:30/3. So when I'm done doing day shift stuff, I transition to night and basically help night get their job done to the best they can to where they're not left behind.
With the Bureau of Fiscal Services being a very demanding job, could you tell us how you use your self-advocacy skills to manage the high demand that are required of the job?
Well, I use advocacy to really help make my job easier. For example, I have the shoulder here, that when I first started using a carpet machine, because we do carpet cleaning there as well. There's a whole lot we do there. And these huge carpet machines, you just fill them up with water, you turn them on, they spray water onto the floor with some soap or just hot water rinsing, and it will bring up, dirt, grime, grease, whatever might be there. and they get heavy. So I pulled a muscle doing it, and the doctor, put me on some light duty for a while, and he's like, I'd rather you not do this anymore. So advocating for myself, I'd be like, I can still do, some other form of carpet cleaning that doesn't involve the weight, but because it will hurt my shoulder. And, everyone's very understanding there of that, and understands that, that's an issue to me. Along with, we do high dusting. The building is littered with cubicles and offices, meeting rooms, conference rooms, break rooms, little filing rooms. The building is huge. I don't remember how many people's in the building. I know it's in the thousands, but cubicles are high, and you have to reach a duster, a wand, like a Swiffer wand, and dust that stuff off. That sometimes can cause stuff in my shoulder. So I've advocated for making my job easier by, doing something really easier on myself, like not having to reach so high that it hurts or causes me pain. So really advocating for myself to make my job easier that isn't going to cause me pain to where I can't do my job. Because if I can't do my job, then we have issues.
What does self-advocacy mean to you?
So self-advocacy means to me is, how do I explain? Okay. To me, it would be the ability to project the needs, responsibilities that are important to an individual, whatever they may be. Everyone is different. There's an individuality, and we all have different needs. And self-advocacy is realizing personally what your needs are and standing up for them by speaking out to them, projecting them. If you need a wheelchair accessibility, you have the ability to speak up and say, hey, this building doesn't have wheelchair accessibility. Let's make this happen. What can we do to make this work? Or something doesn't have proper handling to get me up and down. I need that to happen. So to me, self-advocacy is the ability to speak what is important to you individually in your life, and having the power to make those changes happen, not instantly, but in time, because all things happen that way. So yeah, I think that's the best way to explain it, really, is the ability to make things happen with the power of the voice, understanding what's important to you and advocating what's important to you.
If you could offer any words of encouragement for self-advocates, what would that be?
Okay, so I've been a self-advocate for myself for a very long time. I've had ups and downs. We all do. But my best advice to give people is the Coleman diamond thing. You got to put pressure to make it shine, to make yourself shine. You got to have a little pressure sometimes. You just got to keep talking, keep advocating for yourself, keep going at what's important to you, letting others know what's important to you. And another thing to me for advice would be to just really never give up. You're going to have your bad days, but don't really let that define you. Don't let that, be your characteristic. Well, today's just been a bad day, just screw it. No, you have the ability to turn that around and make it something better, because the day is only over when you go to sleep. You still have all the day to make it better. So always look for those small things to make your life better, and understand what your needs are. Make a list of it. I have it all in notes here, what my needs are. I understand what my needs are. And I always want to be sure I let whoever I need to know that this is what I need for myself. So understand what you need for yourself and project that to the people that you really need to understand it to, and talk clearly, plainly, make them understand how important this is to you in professionalism and confidence, not to scream at them, but professionalism and confidence. And always smile. Smiling goes a long way. Okay. So just wear that smile. Don't be defined by your mistakes. You can do it. We can do it. Look how far we've come now. Why stop now?
Is there anything else you would like to add?
Yeah, actually, have a good mindset at all times. We live in some pretty sad times right now. So, and we've always got to keep our mindsets in a right place. Always thinking positive, always, remembering what our goals is, because this world has a way of really just, hammering you down. You just got to keep forward towards the goal. Keep it in your mind that this is what I want to do. I'm going to do it no matter how long it takes. I will do it. Keep a positive mindset of confidence and victory, and you'll always win every single time. It might take a little while to get the results you want, but it will get there in time. Just always keep the positive mindset. Well, okay, if I didn't get this worked out with this legislator today, maybe he might pass this on to somebody else and friction might start and something might happen. So, sparks start a fire, so never lose that positive mindset and confidence in yourself, but always believe in yourself. And if you ever feel down, have a support system of people that you can go to talk about what's bothering you and what's really, eating at you. Sometimes all we need is just a good listener, not advice, just a listener. So have a support system that understands you, knows what your needs are as much as you do, and can help reinforce and kick you back into shape. This is why you're here. This is what you're doing. This is the road you're on. Just keep going.
Thank you so much, Michael, for joining us today. Do not forget, if you have an important piece of legislation you want discussed on a future episode or want to be an advocate in action, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. You can call the ARC at 304-422-3151. You can also email me at my email directly, melissa.southall@peoplefirstwv.org.
And my email is morgan.spicer@thearcmov.org. We would love to hear from you and maybe have you as a guest on a future show.
With that, we are out of time for this month's episode. Thanks so much, Susan Gibbon, Executive Director with Disability Rights of West Virginia, and Advocate in Action, Michael Spicer.
Thanks so much for joining us. Hope to see you again next month. And remember, advocacy matters.
And so do you.
See you next time.